It's not the problem, but the great challenge of doing your vampire books for film, right, is that Hollywood gets its hand on something, or a major studio does, and their first thought is, how can we make the version of this that is the most mass appeal? And if you approach your vampires in that way, you have from the get-go completely negated everything you brought to the genre and to those stories. Right. And so you have to stop, you have to get in there early and stop them from doing that, which is not easy. You have to say that these are soulful, complicated, you know, characters that you have to do justice to the same way you would in something Shakespearean or you know, a thriller.
Right, exactly. I don't want to see a fictional movie just using the names of my characters written by a producer.
Blade Part 6 with Anne Rice's character.
Exactly. I would rather not. I mean, if it's going to be so fictionalized that they don't, you know, or so fictionalized in somebody else's way that just don't bother to use my work.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
You know?
We'll make it work. We'll figure it out. We'll bring all these people. It'll be fine.
I want to begin it with Lestat as a young man, just the way the Vampire Lestat begins. The first book of the Vampire Chronicles really is the Vampire Lestat. The story of Louis in New Orleans, that takes place later in Lestat's life. I mean, the Vampire Lestat is a prequel to that, to Interview with the Vampire. And I want to begin it with Lestat as a young man, desperate to get out of Auvergne, desperate to get out of his father's castle, to get away from the poverty, the filth, the frustration, the ignorance, dying to go to Paris to become a young actor on the boulevards, not caring at all about his being the Marquis's son or being a disgraced aristocrat, couldn't care less, just wanting so badly to be an actor, to create, to be in the capital. And then he gets there, and as we all know, he gets snatched right out of mortal life and made a vampire by a dark, mysterious personality named Magnus. And I want to begin right there and follow the adventures of Lestat through the Chronicles. We will get to the story of Interview with the Vampire in maybe the third season. You know, maybe the second. It would depend on how many episodes we do. If we do 10, 13, 15, 16, 17 episodes, we may get to it in the second season. I don't think we're not going to go to network at all. I'm almost certain of that, though I think network TV still produces all kinds of genius stuff. This is far too transgressive for network. I don't think we would go in that direction. Our home would be someplace like Amazon or HBO or Starz or Showtime or Netflix. And because these books deal with different themes, and we want to be able to do those themes with complete freedom. A network, even now with all the groundbreaking changes in television in the last 10 years, network shows are still have to be for a general audience, and they are not going to deal with a lot of the things in the Vampire Chronicles. They would be bound to have to change those things. We want very much to get actors who look the part, who can play immortals, who are going to look the same age because they're vampires and they don't change for 5, 6, 7 years perhaps. So that rules out, say, a 14-year-old star playing the role of Armand, for example, because a 14-year-old is going to change in 5 years so dramatically that he won't be very convincing as a vampire. But those are the problems we're facing. But obviously there are right now just many, many, many very fine British, Australian, Canadian, and American actors working in costume drama, working in fantasy, working in historical drama, who are doing just beautiful work. And I don't think we're going to have any trouble finding the actors to play these roles. I really don't. I think that we are in a golden age of historical drama and fantasy on television. And before that, the movies really opened all this up with the Lord of the Rings trilogy and with the Harry Potter series, which was all done in England with fabulous British voices and British demeanor people, you know, and so forth. And so all of that is laid the ground for us to have a lot to choose from, really. So keep the suggestions coming. Keep the handsome guys coming. One thing you can be sure of, we will be true to the characters. Absolutely. I think Lestat is the one character where the actor really has to look like the character in the book exactly. Blue eyes, blonde hair. Louis, obviously it doesn't matter. Brad Pitt did him as a blonde when Louis in fact has black hair and green eyes. So apparently a very beautiful guy can play Louis who's maybe not entirely looking exactly like Louis. Armand, I don't know how important the auburn hair is to the fans or the readers. I prefer to call them the readers. But I do know they care very much that Armand looked young. He was made a vampire when he was 17 at the latest, and really looks more like 14 or 15, according to Lestat. And we do want somebody like that. But that's going to have to be an actor of 26 or 27, because you can't cast, as I've mentioned before, you can't cast a 14-year-old in that role. He'll change too much between seasons. You'll have somebody who looks radically different by the end of the series, and vampires don't change.
Yeah.
Now, with Claudia, that's not a concern because she's only in one episodic block of the series.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I'd like it to be historically accurate. I really love getting things absolutely accurate, and I did a lot of research for these books to get the background material accurate. If I've made mistakes in costuming and furniture, they weren't intentional, and I appreciate it when people report mistakes to me, and sometimes they're right and sometimes they're wrong, but I certainly appreciate their doing it. No, I don't. I'd like it very much to be accurate. I'm jarred very much when I tune into something that's supposed to be set in the 18th century or the 16th century, and I see things that are anachronistic and ridiculous. I don't want to be obsessive and compulsive about it, but I would like it to be accurate. I'm not necessarily planning on that, excuse me, but I have an irrepressible desire to create, so I wouldn't be a bit surprised if new characters popped up. But it's not going to violate or pull the series off track. It'll be somebody peripheral or somebody that has an actual place in the series as we go along. That might very well happen, and I will be able probably to use those characters in future books.
So you would take original material from the series and
possibly
turn it into a book?
Yeah,
that's great.
Possibly. Again, I'm just saying that could happen. It may not happen. The truth is, we have an enormous amount of material. Our problem is not material. We have so much material. It's what you can use and what you don't want to leave out. It's a lot of times that's not the case with a television series. They sit down to start to write the series, and they have to explore and create material for themselves. They have to get very, very busy. That's not our problem. We've got it. We've got baskets of material. We're going to deal with those people who can do this with the most fidelity to the books. It's just, that's what we want. We want a commitment to the vampires until a start, and if that's not your thing, we understand. Watch something else. I mean, commitment to the integrity of the books, of what the readers of the books want to see, the characters they want to see, and the situations they want to see them in. That's what I want to be true to. People in the past who've tried to adapt these books and change them have betrayed that. They have not been true to the characters as written. They have not been true to the situations that occurred in the books. When you come at this to water it down, when you come at it with half commitment, when you believe that it can't be made the way it's written, when you start out believing that you have to tame it or eviscerate it for an audience, I mean, you're dealing with half commitment and falsehood and dishonesty. We don't want that. I mean, in 1994, David Geffen and Neil Jordan made the movie Interview with the Vampire, and they made it with full commitment. They absolutely committed to the books. They did make some small, minor changes. The wonderful actress Kirsten Dunst, who played Claudia, was a little older than the Claudia in the book. But that was almost a necessity. It was almost impossible to find a 5 or 6 year old actress who could play Claudia in that. But other than that, they were uncompromising in their commitment to the book. And they set the standard very, very high. Very, very high. And we want to continue with that kind of standard. I've seen many, many scripts that never got made of this material in Hollywood. And I've seen half commitment, watered down approaches, compromises galore, and believe me, there's a reason none of those scripts ever got made. We won't stick with that model because the books vary tremendously in how much incident and dramatic material they have. Like the Vampire Lestat itself, I would say, has to be well, wait a minute now. Wait a minute. I'm not entirely sure. I don't know. Well, again, we're going to see how long it goes, but it could be 2 seasons. It could, the first season, if it's, say, 10 episodes, could cover Lestat, his battles with Armand and the Children of Satan and the formation of the Theater of the Vampires. And the first season could end with his going off to search for Marius, and the second season could be all concerned with what Marius tells him and the stories and what happens and going into Interview with the Vampire. I don't know, but that's not. It won't be modeled on books because the books themselves are different in so many ways. Christopher is going to write these scripts, and he has some wonderful ideas of his own. So he knows this material very, very well. It's going to be very exciting to see it. I'm going to be doing the outlines and what maybe somebody would call the beat sheet, where you just list each scene you'd like to see and so forth. But he's going to be actually doing the magic of the scriptwriter. I love you, and thank you very much for tuning in.